Good day, welcome to the Automotive Dad. Behind me, the Suzuki Swace. Now, not any Suzuki Swace, this is the Ultra. Two kinds of models that you can get of this, Motion and Ultra. This is the Ultra. Prices are around about £30,000, and this one's finished in a precious silver pearl. Key facts to note about the Swace: it's powered by a 1.8 litre petrol engine, but it's a hybrid, so it's got electric motors going on as well, which means a combined 140 horsepower and 327 newton meters of torque. What does this really mean? It means that the 0 to 60 time, because this has been upgraded from the previous version, is finally under 10 seconds, down to like 9.8 seconds, top speed of just over 100 miles an hour, and a WLTP figure, real world, and this is a figure that I promise you will realistically see, of 62.7 miles per gallon. So join me as we have a look around the 2023 Suzuki Swace. Now, if you're looking at the front of this and thinking, hey, that looks sort of like a Toyota Corolla, well, you're not wrong, because this sort of is a Toyota Corolla. Same production line, just Suzuki making their own spin on it. So the front end is slightly different. The lines, the contours are not identical to a Corolla. Suzuki have put their spin on it. The biggest upgrade really is these bi-LED headlights at the front, which make a real difference to your night driving. Otherwise, the style is somewhat that of the previous model. And whilst this is sort of a face that on initial inspection only a mother could love, it does grow on you and it does start to look a bit better. But what I will say is that the Ultra over the Motion looks considerably better on the front end because of the daytime running light design. If you do go for a Motion, it's a bit more of a boring design and it does look a little bit more boring. Now let's talk all things side profile. So obviously not the biggest alloys in the world, but they are 16-inch standard powder coated alloys. Perk of them not being massive is that the ride's really good. The interior noise is great. It's basically just comfy, but that's more about the drive. But 16-inch alloys is what you get. Side profile though, the lines are quite nice. They kind of sweep from the front all the way to the back to the nice light cluster here. It's pretty reasonable. Whilst it's not design language that's gonna break the record books, it's safe design language that a few manufacturers have used. You could get this confused with an Astra on side profile, but ultimately it's not a bad design. The closest you're really going to get to the Toyota design language being almost exact as it is with Toyota is at the back. Whilst this has a Suzuki badge and it says Suzuki and Swace, ultimately this is very, very close to the design that Toyota used, but lights, nice uprated LEDs in this newer revision. Ultimately, it's actually quite a nicely designed back end. You see quite a few of these under the Toyota guise. You see them everywhere. It's actually quite a nicely constructed back end of a car. But ultimately, Suzuki, not a bad job, although this isn't so much their job, but anyway, I won't go into that. Now this inside is a really nice place to be, because through and through, it's not massively bougie or luxurious, but it's very comfortable and very nicely designed. So as a result, the driver's seat, steering wheel has great touch, all the buttons you could possibly need at your fingertips, a digital display cluster which can be customized to show you what you want, a good sized infotainment screen that can do Apple CarPlay, actual buttons to control your climate, and the seats are comfortable, a nice design. They're not overly holding, but they're comfortable for longer drives. All I would say is that the bolsters could do with being a bit more bolstery, because as I'll get to in a bit, this handles really well. When you go around corners a little bit faster, you do feel like you're somewhat falling out of the seat. The inside cabin space itself is pretty reasonable. In the front, at the very least, you have bundles and bundles of headroom. It's a good visibility from the driver's seat with extra extensions on here to make sure that your blind spots are completely controlled. But being honest, in an Ultra you have blind spot monitor anyway, so it's not really an issue. The audio system's really good as standard, really punchy, really accurate. It can play all of your favourite tunes just as loud as you could possibly want. Now find yourself in the back, and the space is actually pretty decent. Whilst not as big as some competitors would offer, for the class that this is in, you can fit a ISOFIX 360 seat in pretty easily. Take that out and the legroom is pretty gargantuous. That's why so many people option these as taxis. Not just fuel economy, the interior space is really good. The fabrics are pretty good at wipe clean, but really what more is there to offer? Because this is a really comfortable and quiet drive. So For those kiddies that need to sleep in the back, this is ideal. Find yourself at the back of the car and you find a pretty decently sized boot. Put those rear seats down and you've got over 590 litres of space. Now, without question, this can take an easy fold-up pram. It can take your eye candies, your Silver Cross and everything in here. What I will say is that because as standard this car was designed to take a full-size spare wheel, underneath here is a, well, pretty substantial amount of space that, yes, you can fill it with other things. You can alternatively fill it with items, but it feels like then the boot floor is just a little bit high. Swap this around the other way and there is a mat that's a little bit more heavy duty. The boot size is good, it's relatively easy to get into, but it's just that slight waste of space underneath that aggravates me, because it meant it could have had a much lower boot floor and therefore you could have fit much more in there. So the drive, when you initially set off, is literally this quiet. Because effectively, when you're driving at slower speeds, it is an electric vehicle. I say slower speeds, even at 70, the EV motor will kick in. So this is the first point. It's very quiet inside, which is lovely when you're trying to get kids to sleep. Now obviously, once you get moving a little bit more, the engine kicks in. The sound's still pretty quiet in here. It's pretty reasonable and pretty impressive. The only times that it can get a little bit cumbersome is when you're on the motorway. CVT has to work a little bit harder, or you're doing a big overtake. But pretty reasonable, really. So this 1.8 litre petrol engine produces, combined with the electric engine, 140 brake horsepower, which now means that 0 to 62 time is under 10 seconds. It's 9.2 seconds, top speed of over 100 miles an hour. And economy that they claim is 62 WLTP. Honestly, in fact it's closer to 63. Around town you see like 68 to 70 miles per gallon so easily. Where you won't see it so easily is on the motorway, which is where this pretty much the only place this is let down is on the motorway, because it will get like 50 to 55 to the gallon driving normally. I say normally, driving at 70 miles an hour. Doesn't like long hills, the CVT kind of struggles there, but as an all-rounder it does pretty reasonably. And on a combined run to central London and back with a lot of traffic, I got like 58 miles to the gallon, which is pretty reasonable. But around town, yeah, super easily 68. Now the actual drive of this is really interesting because it's a normal EcoBox car, but it actually handles incredibly well. It properly grips on in corners. Not what I expected. Because it has electric motors, the instant torque when you want to get off the line is that instant. The brake feel isn't too different than you would expect for a normal vehicle. It's not identical, but it's very close. You're not really getting that hybrid-esque feel that you used to get. And when the engine kicks in and out, you don't really notice a massive difference. On the motorway, only because sometimes the engine can be laboured when the EV part of it ends up changing from EV to EV and petrol. It's then asking the engine to kick in and immediately go to work. You feel a little bit of a jolt there, but that's about it. As the drive goes around town, this is unquestionably good and comfortable and quiet and very refined. Truthfully, I mean, performance-wise, it's beyond what you would expect of an EcoBox, but definitely not gonna wow you in a driving experience. Look, the steering feel is nice. Put it in sport mode, it gives you a bit more of a dynamic driving feel, but that is genuinely about it. But that's no bad thing. This is not supposed to be a fun performance car, so the fact that you can have a little bit of fun is quite nice. So to summarise, this is a £30,000 car, which in today's standards isn't loads of money. Finance options mean that you can get this car for like £260 a month with a reasonable deposit or less. It's a very good car. This is one of the few that, whilst it's not totally perfect for an all-round family lifestyle, it suits really well. Because let's be honest, the fact that around town you can so easily get high 60 mpg is great. The fact that it's not quite as good as a diesel on a run is not the end of the world. The fact that the front isn't the nicest designed isn't great, but there's nothing you can really do about that, because ultimately it's a design that will grow on you. BMW have released some horrific designs and you get used to them, in the same way that in the few days that I've had this, I've got used to it. You may also want to note that this car is incredibly dirty, not because it was dirty when it got dropped off, but because I've driven it so much in the week that it's been here, because it's been so good at doing everything. The drive is great, the price is affordable, and the interior space, come on, it's just family friendly. Do yourself a favour, if you're considering one of these against a Toyota, and price is the thing that's going on, the Toyota Corolla, technically with this type of specification, is more money at the time of this recording. So consider the Suzuki, and either way, just consider it, because this is an incredibly good car.